When a lot of firepower is needed in a small portable package, you can't beat the Sola 4 Traveler Kit. Out of all the different models of lights that Litepanels makes, the Sola 4 is probably my personal favorite because they're so powerful and versatile. Let's start by taking a look at what's included with the Sola 4 Traveler Kit. First, you've got 3 identical Sola 4 lights with 4-way barn doors. Notice that there's already a pre-cut hole in the foam of the case to perfectly hold a Litepanels 1x1 in case you already have one or decide to add one to your kit in the future. Sola 4s can be powered with the included AC adapters or from a wide variety of batteries using an optional Anton Bauer D-tap to 4-pin XLR cable. For example, here's a Sola 4 being powered by an Anton Bauer battery attached to an adapter plate with an integrated D-tap power outlet. The adapter has a built-in clamp so it can be easily attached to any light stand, and I recommend keeping it low on the stand so it provides extra stability. A battery like this will allow the Sola 4 to run for several hours at full power, and if the light is dimmed down, it might be able to run all day. And speaking of dimming it down, there are 2 knobs on the back side of the Sola 4. The left-hand knob controls the intensity, while the right-hand knob changes the focus of the beam. And only a true Fresnel light, such as the Sola 4, can give you the ability to create something as simple as a slash pattern on a wall, or a sharply defined shadow pattern from a cookie. And if the pattern looks too sharp, don't worry, just change the focus and/or the dimming to get the exact look that you want for the shot. The Sola 4 is a very flexible light. Let's take a look at how the Sola 4 Traveler Kit can be used in some common shooting scenarios. Without a doubt, the most common use for the Sola 4 Traveler Kit is for shooting interviews and other types of headshots. There isn't hardly a documentary, corporate video, or news story that doesn't include these types of shots. In a typical interview setup with classic 3-point lighting, you'll want to use one Sola 4 as the key light, one Sola 4 as your fill light, and the third Sola 4 as your backlight. As I said earlier, the first step should always be to choose your location wisely. I suggest looking for locations where you have an interesting looking background that already has some nice light on it, and then you can use the 3 lights from your kit to make the talent look great. Almost without exception, the key light should be placed on the same side of the camera as where the interviewer will be seated. The order should be camera, interviewer, key light. You'll probably find that placing the key light about 6 to 8 feet from the subject at a 30 to 45 degree off-axis angle from the camera and raised so that it's about a foot or 2 higher than the head of the subject is a good place to start. Now, no 2 setups are exactly the same, so the final positioning will vary from shot to shot, but this starting point will get you in the ballpark. However, sometimes the naked light might be a little harsher than you want it to be, so you might want to add some diffusion. Litepanels offers an optional gel kit that is specially designed for use with the Sola 4, and placing 1 or 2 of the discs behind the barn doors is fast and easy. Another option is to clip some diffusion material onto the front of the barn doors. Both Roscoe and Lee offer inexpensive diffusion filter packs that contain an assortment of pre-cut sheets of various types of materials. See the difference a little diffusion makes? And remember that since a Sola 4 will never get hot, you can use many different kinds of materials for diffusion, and that's yet another advantage of working with LED lights. Now, the point of the key light is not to see how much light you can blast onto the subject. The key light has 2 purposes. First, to ensure that the camera has enough light to get the correct exposure, and second, to make the talent look good. If you add too much light, it can become counterproductive. Another technique you can use to make the key light even bigger and softer is to shine it through a 48-inch translucent flex fill. I recommend using a Manfrotto or Avenger reflector holder to keep the flex fill positioned exactly where you want it. Next, aim the Sola 4 so it shines right at the center of the flex fill, and adjust the focus of the beam so that the circle of light fills the disc without spilling over the edges. And then the dimmer can be used to choose the intensity that's needed. And just like that, you've got a 42-inch softbox. The flex fill setup provides excellent results and I highly recommend it, but since it requires extra accessories that you may not have, let's set the flex fill aside and continue with just using the Sola 4 and some diffusion as our key light. Now it's time to bring in the fill light. The primary purpose of the fill light is to control the contrast ratio between the light and dark sides of the face. In general, flat lighting, where both sides of the face are lit evenly, shouldn't be your goal. But an exception to that rule is if the talent will be speaking directly to the camera. In that instance, often it does look better if the key and fill lights have nearly equal intensity. With classic 3-point lighting, the fill light should be positioned on the opposite side of the camera from the key light and at about the same height as the top of the subject's head. I recommend adding some diffusion to this light as well. As I said before, it's best to have the lights running at full power while you position them, and then you can dial down the dimmer to get the final look that you want. Sometimes you may want a dramatic, high contrast look, but usually a softer look with subtle shadowing looks better. Now with the key light and the fill light in position, it's time to think about what we're going to do with the third Sola 4. Generally you'll want to use it as a backlight, but in some situations a backlight may not be desired, and that frees up the light to be used for the background instead. We'll talk about that in a minute. When I'm using the Sola 4 as a backlight, I place it on the same side as the fill light and carefully position so that it's just barely outside of the frame. You can use the Sola 4's focus knob to control the shape of the light, and then turn the light's dimmer knob to get the intensity just the way you want it. And that's one of my favorite things about using LED lights. The point of the backlight is just to separate the talent from the background and give your 2D image more of a 3D feel. Usually a subtle backlight is more effective than an overly strong one, so don't get carried away and overdo it. So that's a pretty basic 3-point lighting setup with the Sola 4 Traveler Kit that would work well with many different shooting scenarios and locations you're apt to encounter. But let's take a couple more minutes and look at some other examples of the Sola 4 Traveler Kit in action. In this example, the room was relatively dark without very much ambient light, and I wanted more light on the background than that. So 2 Sola 4s are being used on the talent, and the third Sola 4 is being used to light up the background. As you'll learn, there's really no end to the variations of what you can do to the background with a Sola 4. To my eyes, some options are certainly more pleasing than others, but it's really a matter of personal taste and what's appropriate for the given situation. Here's a circle of light. Here's a slash. How about a slash with a little blue gel added to the light? Or a slash with a sheet of CTO gel? If you've got a fourth light stand and a clamp, you can try adding a cookie pattern. Cookies are cutouts that are placed in front of a light to help add texture to the background. This is one I made myself by cutting up a piece of black foam core with a utility knife. Cookies can be used to simulate window frames, light coming through a blind, a limitless number of geometric patterns, with or without colored gels, or simply used to add some soft random shadowing. But be careful about overdoing it. The point is just to add some subtle texture to the scene, not to dazzle the audience with a fake-looking pattern of shadows. Another advantage of Sola 4s is that they're perfect when you're faced with lighting an interview with 2 people on camera. Due to the Sola 4's high power, you can move the lights back to a comfortable distance and illuminate both people with equal intensity. Sola 4s are ideal for fast-moving news production because they're so portable and easy to use. Here's a typical stand-up with 2 battery-operated Sola 4s that was set up in about 5 minutes. And when you're done with the shot, don't forget that you're not going to have to waste valuable time waiting for the lights to cool down before you can pack them up. Sola 4s can also make excellent, very powerful fill lights on faces during daytime. And finally, I like to use Sola 4s whenever I just need to bring up the ambient level of light in a room without making it look like it's being lit. I just aim 1 or 2 of the lights up at the ceiling and let them fill the room with diffused light. And I never have to worry about setting off sprinklers or singeing the paint like I would if I was using tungsten lights.